let's get some terminology for working with whole numbers and rounding these values. So the whole numbers are a set that begin at 0 and then go off in the positive direction. And whole numbers mean that there aren't any fractions or decimals occurring. So a nice visual for this can be a number line. So with number lines, typically what we do is they continue on in either direction, and then we're reading them from left to right, meaning the smaller numbers are going to be on your left-hand side and larger numbers are to the right-hand side. So if you kind of start in the middle, like we have our 3 there, the numbers are going to get smaller as we go off to the left, larger as we go off to the right. And typically we always want to keep that direction when we're working with number lines, which is something we'll talk about more later in the term when we work with inequalities and things, where we'll need to graph things with the number line. So if we have our number line, there are a bunch of values in between there, like here's 1/2 or here's like 1/3, but whole numbers don't occur in between those values. So we're just at 0, 1, 2, 3, and then continuing on off into the positive direction with the much larger numbers like 100, 1,245. Those would be whole numbers. But anything with a decimal or fractions not, and negative numbers are not whole numbers. Okay, so place value. And this can continue on with much larger values, but this is basically will go as far as trillions. So we have our ones place, tens place, hundreds place. So what this does is it helps us read these numbers out loud. So what can help is using commas for every 3. So like this is 5,278,194 is how we would read that. So it's just putting together your hundreds, tens, and thousands place, hundred, tens, and ones place, but over here it's in the thousands, and here it's in the hundreds. So let's consider this number right here. What is the place value for 8? So just identifying the place value. So let's see, here's our 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. So now we're in the millions. So million, 10 million. So the place value would be 10 million. So that's telling us that we have 80 million values there. Okay, what is the place value for 3? So 3 is right here, and I have to highlight, not scratch out. That is in the hundreds place. So we would just go hundreds. Then the place value for 9, which is right here, that would be the ones place. Okay, so write the word name for the number. So what I'm going to do here that can kind of help is seeing that, okay, this first grouping here, this 285, that's in the millions place. And then this 146, that's in the thousands. And then what we'll do is have that end, which is with the hundreds. So we have 285, and all of that is in millions. So 285 million, then 146, 146, and that's 1,000. And then to finish it is just 309. 309. So where we have that 0 there, we kind of replace that with just saying and. So you have this 309 since we don't have anything in the tens. So I'm just going to kind of double check. 285,146,309. Now I'm trying to get back out of just as math. 285,000, 146,000. So maybe we would throw in ands in between there. That's what I was trying to work out. 285,146,309. So, putting all that together in one big sentence. Okay, write the number for 282,000. So we're going to have 282,000 and then 54. So 282, and then that's going to be 1,000, and then 54. So we have nothing in the hundreds, and then we'll just have 54. Okay, rounding values. So what we're going to do is find the digit in the rounding place value. So they're going to tell us what to round to. And then what we're going to do is look at the value that's just to the right of that number. If it is less than 5, so 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, we're going to round down. So basically we keep that number that's in the place value. So that's where we keep the value. 5 or more, so if we're seeing a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we're going to round up, which means we're going to add 1 onto the value to the right. So round 31,024 to the nearest 100. So we want to round the hundreds place. So we're focusing on that value there. And something that I find helpful is kind of think of like this barrier here, so that we can see what's the number to the right. So what I'm doing is I'm focusing on this 2 to see if we're going to round up or down. So that value of 2 is less than 5. So what we're going to do is keep our number the same, which actually I don't really want to write it there. I'm going to keep the 0 essentially. So rounding this to the nearest 100, 31,000. Our hundreds place is going to keep the 0, and then everything else turns to zeros. So that's going to round it to the nearest 100, and that we rounded at that place value. Okay, round to the nearest 10. So the tens place is right here. So what I'm focusing on is everything to the right there is going to turn into zeros, but I need to evaluate that number to the right to see if I'm going to round up or down. And because it's a 5, we're going to round up. So meaning we're going to bump up by 1. So that means we keep the hundreds place, that's not rounding at all, but this tens place, that's going to bump up from 2 to a 3, and then everything else turns into a 0. So 330. So when rounding, they're going to give you a place value to round to, and that's going to be kind of your cutting off point where everything to the right of it's going to turn into zeros. But you need to first evaluate whether you're going to keep that value that's in the place. So like keep the hundreds value, keep the tens value, or are we going to bump it up by 1? So are we rounding down or up?